Hello everybody, welcome to the Ripple Podcast. In this season of the podcast, we are calling it Impact. And we're going to have conversations with people who are making an impact in their society. Today's episode, we're talking to Lyn Van Blerk from Life First, where she is making an impact in teen pregnancies, abortion, and healthy sex education. So why don't you lean in and let's jump right into the conversation.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's a privilege and an honor to be here.
Yeah, we've known you for a while. I've known you for a while.
Yeah, you have.
I think I was 14.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You spent some time in my house with my son. Yeah.
Weeks on end, not telling my mother that I had slept over at Lionel's house, and I came back a week or two back.
Yeah.
She's like, "Where have you been?" I was like, "No, I was at Lionel's house." But yeah, it's been good.
Yeah. Journeyed a long way, and I've journeyed with your mother as well.
Yeah.
Worked with her for 20 years, so a lot of history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been good.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know you, who is Lyn?
Well, you can see by my grey hair that I have had a long journey in my life already. So I grew up a very simple life, and mostly in KZN, Tongaat, and finished up my high school in Durban North. And then I went nursing at Addington Hospital. I did 3 years training there. And then I went on to do midwifery. And then during that time, I met my husband, who I've now been married to for 45 years.
Sure, that's amazing.
And I did community nursing as well once we were married. And about 5 years after we were married, we started our family. So Lauren was born, and she's now turning 40 this year, and Lionel thereafter. So you must be 37 there, thereabouts.
He turned 37
in February.
So it's our 37th year.
Yeah. So we had our 2 children, and now, of course, so I did a bit of part-time nursing, mainly focusing on wanting to be a mum.
Okay.
And so try to keep as part-time as possible, just in hospitals, doctors' rooms, doing a bit of community stuff. And then I started working in the school. It's been 20 years working at the King's School, Christian education, doing admissions and admin work. And 3 years ago, I retired. So... that's pretty much a nutshell, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. You mentioned that you did midwifery, you did some nursing.
Yeah.
How did you get into that? Were you passionate about that specifically?
Ever since I was very little, I actually always just had a sense that I wanted to nurse. Yeah. And I don't know. I think, God must put destiny in your life, So, but just a little bit further than that, my mom was an unwed mum. So let me just see. I was conceived out of wedlock. Yeah. All right. So, as you go through your life, you realize that actually God's got a plan and a purpose for us all. Yeah. And, she could have, she was 23, my father was 21. They actually got married. So I was, born and given a name. But she had an option. She could have made a choice. Yeah. And, but the one thing she did do, it was like, if you think back in 1955, you're looking back into a different era where, good families don't, have children out of wedlock. Yeah. And so, I think that she was very terrified, like, what am I going to do? But the one thing she did that I know that stood in good stead for everything is that she actually went to church, dedicated me in the womb to the Lord. So I've always had a sense of God in my life as well. So I think that somehow God placed destiny in my life, and it's not like I've been out there doing great, missionary work and all that kind of stuff. And it's been a process. It's been a developmental thing going through my life. Yeah. And yeah, so I think that's, when you realize you hear your story, how you came into the world, and you have to work through a lot of healing, emotional healing, relational healing. And so I think that also, the combination of that, this desire to go nursing, when I finished up school, that's the only thing I ever thought about. I wanted to go nursing, and I loved it.
Yeah.
So I did general training, it's hard graft, hours and hours on your feet, and challenging. But and then going into the midwifery, that when you're working with people, you realize that sometimes for the first time they're lying on their backs and they're saying, "God, why me?" You cruise through life and you think you are in control, and then something happens, disease, accident, and you're lying on your back. And for me, the role was like I would be there as a student nurse, really, and I was just full of zeal for the Lord, and I would just take that opportunity just to share, a message, of encouragement. Often would pray, not something you're really allowed or encouraged to do, but I did it.
Yes.
And so I think that all, influenced, who I am today, and how I live my life, and and have high value for community and family, and the dynamics of family. I think it's really impacted me to be able to.
Yeah.
I also was very timid.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I had absolutely no confidence growing up. And it was very intimidating for me to do things like, read aloud in class, or, and in my matric year I was, invited to be a prefect, and that was quite an honor actually. But, as a prefect you had to do certain things, and one of the things they gave me to do was I had to read a scripture in assembly on a Friday. And I'm telling you, it was the most nerve-wracking thing ever. So even today, I find it quite intimidating to be up front. But you know what? I'm like a real Moses. I think, I can't do this, God. Moses, said, well, I stutter, and he's got all these excuses. But I'm challenged to give back, and to put back in, because I know there's a lot of treasure and value that I've received that I know that I love to give. And I think nursing, you're kind of in the rescue business, so I love just to help people, so that's part of, maybe my personality. Having gone into nursing, you're always helping people, want to see them get better. So I have this kind of a sense of, wanting to be there to serve. And I think because of the hard work ethic, you also, it takes work. You got to roll up your sleeves. Got to get your hands dirty to help people. It isn't sitting back and wishing for people to be helped. And
we'll have this conversation a little bit later as we keep talking. But you said something where a lot of people found themselves on their back. They are looking for help, and kind of. As we, we'll have the conversation about, what you're doing now with Life First, but just drawing a contrast between, helping people who are in hospital, who are giving birth, who, maybe it is a choice to start a family. Do you find, is there a difference between, you're referencing to the hard work in terms of people wanting to be helped and people needing the help and not wanting to be helped? How do you find that? Do you find a correlation between the two, in the sense of it's harder to try and help people who don't want to be helped but are in the space of need?
So I think you've got to be sensitive to where people are at. I mean, you wouldn't I don't believe that you just go along and bop somebody over the head with scriptures and the gospel message. I think you've got to build relationship. And, so as you spend time with people, can be just a short period of time, but you learn to discern or assess or be sensitive to perhaps where they're at. And I think that, the area of ministry that I do with Life First, you're coming at a point of brokenness. And I think that God often uses our brokenness to be able to unravel some of the things in our own lives, So, when you get a crisis, whether, as you say, like a hospital bed or whether it's an unplanned pregnancy, you kind of like have that opportunity to come in at that point of intervention. And I think because of that, people tend to open up.
Yeah.
And generally, my kind of person that I am is that I'm a 20-question person.
Yeah.
And so, like, if I'm with somebody, I'll ask questions. So and they can be leading kind of questions just to see where they're at, to get a person to talk. And most of us love to talk about ourselves.
Yeah.
And so that people, always, everybody has a story. Yeah. Everybody has a place that they've come from where they've had to work through challenges, heartbreak, brokenness, rejection, hostility, a lot of stuff that really hurts people. And I think we all go through life where, there's this whole thing of fatherlessness at the moment.
Yeah.
It's always been there, but the thing is that we are so conscious of it.
Yes,
it's huge. So, there's areas where people are grappling with, facets of life that they've got questions and they aren't asking questions.
Yes.
So, for me, I just, believe that if I can be there instrumental in helping a person just to, just to plant a seed, or maybe I'm the one that's just going to water that seed.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that there's certain points in time that in your life where you just meet people for just a brief time or maybe a season of time, and you just journey with them through that time, and it help them just to be encouraged, to feel I can do this, and look outside and beyond themselves, see that they're stronger than they are, braver than they are, and we are resilient. We actually have a lot of resilience in us.
Yeah.
So it just took people to believe in themselves, so that they've got some sort of a tool, to be equipped to be able to face their drama or their crisis.
That's amazing.
And to recognize their diamond quality, everybody has diamond quality.
Yeah.
So we have great value and we don't realize it. Lots of self-worth, but a lot of people, don't actually see that. They see their weakness and their failures, and they don't really see their strengths. And, sometimes you just got to turn a person a little bit to see, you actually have got strengths.
Yeah. Ah, that's amazing. That's awesome. So share with us a little bit more about Life First. So it's been good to kind of get a bit of a backstory on who you are. Like you said, you're not someone extraordinary, but you are making a difference, and there surely is going to be a ripple effect in people's lives, moving forward. And just from your own experience, all these years later, this is Life First. For those that don't know, just share with us
what Life First
is and what you offer.
So the New Creation Family Church actually had, in its very, very early inception days, a heart for unwed moms, orphans, the widows, typical, straight out the Book of Acts kind of thing. And while Ron Robinson was alive, it was one of the visions and really the things that he wanted to see come about, like a mother's home or, caring for children. So we see that through Oasis. But, we've never really had anything in terms of the unplanned and the whole abortion, the hot topic issue of abortion. So Life First actually started in 2018. And it was started by Kath Knights. And she made an appeal in church. I'd never really sought after it or anything, and just gathered a few people together and said, there's this opportunity and this is the scope of it. And if you want to find out more, let's, get together again. And so that's really how the journey started. And no sooner had we kind of started when she said she's taking up a post in Neisner and she's leaving the area. So she's really, really sorry. But and we were left with this just few people, and we were the steering committee. So, we found a name and we started, working towards becoming an NPO. And so we were a pregnancy help center. So we call ourselves coaches.
Right.
We do lay counseling, but we really coach. You know, come alongside somebody standing on the sidelines. We can't do things for people.
Yes.
They have to do it, but we're there to be that supportive coach role. So it really reaches towards those that have an unplanned pregnancy.
Yeah.
The unplanned pregnancy is not an individual. It actually affects the whole family and therefore the whole community.
Yes, yeah.
You know, it's not just an isolated thing, but the person going through it feels very isolated.
Yes, yeah.
But, you know, the important thing is that it has a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Great word, hey? Into the community. So it affects much wider than just this one person having an unplanned pregnancy. Yeah. And they've got to make a choice. They've got to decide, what am I going to do?
Yes, yeah.
So there's nothing that you can do that can just be a quick fix.
Yes.
You know, there's 3 options. You can abort the child, you can single parent the child or parent the child as a couple, or you can look and consider adoption. But not one of those is an easy choice, you can imagine. It's a life-changing
decision. Yeah.
So we try and share facts with people so that they make an informed decision.
Yeah, sure. No, that's amazing. And it's been about 5 or 6 years, in this time, do you have a story or stories that
lots of stories
that have you've either seen God move or that's had a deep impact on you, that's left a mark on you for some reason. So
look, you journey with people, so you don't always see the long-term outcome, but you do find, like, every now and again somebody will send you a message to say, here's my baby, but they were abortion-minded, and I can't to put it all in one, but I can just tell you maybe one story that probably encompasses a whole lot of people's stories. So, I've been more active probably in the last 3 years because I am in a retired situation. But the people that we started off with are no longer involved because we kind of all moved in different directions. So I'm at the point of like fanning back into flame, just to get something, because there's so much more, to do.
Yeah.
But this one story, it happened during the kind of lockdown time when, I was doing a lot of online stuff, and somehow this lady got my phone number from somebody, I don't know. But anyway, she kept on telling me that she needed nappies and she needed milk, and I don't have that. And I just thought to myself, how can I help her, and I was hoping she would just like go away, actually, because I thought, I kept saying to her, I don't have anything, And I started asking her some questions a little bit and found out a little bit more about her, and a little bit confusing, but it sounded like she was exploited. So she had come from another country into South Africa and had something really awful had happened to her, and she landed up becoming pregnant. And I think that it wasn't what was supposed to happen, and she landed up by being kicked out with this pregnancy. But I think they tried to destroy her in some way. So they made her take drink glass, and then they just left her for dead. Somebody found her, got her into the hospital, where she was now critically ill because of what the glass was doing to her. And she gave premature birth to her baby, but she couldn't care for the baby because she was undergoing major surgery. And so the baby then she was a stranger to our country and doesn't know anybody, kindly took this child in. And for the first 5 months of his life, basically she was in recovery mode with major abdominal surgery. And so she was looking, because somebody out of the kindness of their heart was needed the nappies and needed the milk. And that's why, I don't know how, but she was phoning me all the time, and I was thinking, oh Lord, I don't know how to help this lady. So anyway, she, for I'd say almost for a year, she kept contact with me. And then she said, oh no, I'm out of hospital, I'm back now with my baby. But she missed the whole breastfeeding opportunity because she was ill and couldn't do that. So she needed the funds. She had no money.
Yeah.
And so she was still there, even though she was now with her baby. Now she's trying to bond with her baby. You can imagine it would be so hard. Not that she didn't want the baby, but the baby didn't really connect with her. So she had to work through that. And so one day she said she would like to come and meet me. So she came from like Soweto area, found her way to me. And she said she'd been doing some laundry for some people. And I gave her some secondhand clothing to sell and some baby clothing for her little boy. And then I thought, well, that's the best I can really do, for her. But she could take the clothing and she could sell it, and maybe, if she built a business, I was encouraging her to build a business. So it's another little side that I do is collect secondhand clothing, make bundles out of it, and then, just teach them how to, keep their investment money, that's their seed money, and save some money, and then that's their spending money so that they can perpetuate and have a sustainable business. And so anyway, the first time she sold something, she went and showed some initiative, and she got a little business card to say, this is my name and I do laundry. But when she came to me, I had been donated 3, almost like, I think they were pretty much brand new irons.
Sure.
And because she told me about the laundry, I said, well, take an iron. And then she messaged me and she said, well, now she needs an ironing board. So I thought, well, I actually don't have an ironing board.
Yeah.
And then she said, so I said, okay, I will look out for you. And I put a note out on just a general street chat,
Yeah.
And some lady contacted me and she said, I've got an ironing board for you. Come and fetch it, which I did. And then she said to me, now I need a washing machine. So I thought, no, she's asking for me for the impossible, but you're going from baby nappies and milk and now it's washing machines.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, do the same thing. I put it out on a group. And somebody actually who I know, she contacted me, say her aunt was moving and was selling a washing machine and a tumble dryer. And she gave a price. And I thought, no, so I just passed it on to this lady. And I said to her, no, you need to pay for it. I can't, they're selling it if you want it. So she somehow or other managed to raise 1,000 rand, paid like a deposit. So she was quite ambitious and determined. And she said, no, she'll make sure she gets the other, amount of money to pay it off. And so I was telling somebody this, and they said, I'll pay the remainder of the machine. So what I'm seeing here is community at work, And so it's just not me. All I was just a channel,
Yeah.
And so they, the people who had the washing machine, actually arranged to put it on their bakkie, and they threw in this tumble dryer that they had as well, and didn't charge her for that. They delivered it all the way to Soweto, and she said, no, she has no problem with water shortage, no power outages, and she now has a successful laundrette.
That's amazing.
And she washes people's clothes and irons them, and she's like earning an income.
That's amazing.
So that's like a full circle story, and I mean, the story continues, but it's just like amazing how when the community comes together, they don't realize the impact they have by just doing one small thing. Can actually be a big thing for somebody. And she's just raised herself up out of her situation of complete poverty and destitution and hardship and a lot of trauma. And she's got this beautiful boy that's probably over a year. He's probably a year and a half now. And she messages me and sends me little videos, and she keeps in touch with me. And she's just done a nursing course, a caregiving course. And so she wants to progress herself. So it not everybody's like that. Sometimes some people just stay in where they're at and they never really rise out of it. But for me, that's restoring dignity. That's restoring some sort of sense of self-worth. It's drawing strength out of a bad situation. It makes some things are possible. all things are possible. It's possible to dig yourself out of the hole that you're in, you know, when bad stuff happens.
Sure. No, that's an amazing story. Yeah. No, that's an amazing story, just to see just the redemption. And it's, you know, we're not naive to the fact that it's not always the case. It's not always possible to always help people. And like I said earlier, like you know, there's some people who don't want to be helped. So part of Life First, you know, there is a lot of educating. What does that process look like in terms of, obviously, you know, there's a lot of people who find themselves in these situations, yet you find that, you know, the key is educating them about parenthood, you know, and all of those kinds of things. So what is that process, and what is some of those things that you do in educating young moms? And
you know, it takes some volunteers to be able to get out there, because obviously it's a very, very wide and broad area, and there's a lot. You know, because the family structure, it's like a broken wall. You know, the moment your wall is broken, it allows the enemy to come in, you know, so you are vulnerable. And so you need a team of people to be able to volunteer and to be able to meet some of those different aspects of where a person is at. You know, so we do option counseling, where we share the facts of options that are available, which I shared a bit earlier, those three. And but there's things like antenatal care and postnatal care. There's a thing that we do called Legacy Dad, where we actually try and reach the dads to help to co-parent or to parent or to be a parent to the child, to father their child. We also do things with post-abortion journey, where we actually come alongside people who have experienced either some form of loss of a child. So there's grief involved in that. But those particularly that have gone through the abortion process are, you know, emotionally, mentally, so they really, really struggle. And it's like post-traumatic stress. Same kind of thing. They relive it and think, what have I done? You know, once they're out of that crisis and they're so desperate, they make a rash decision. They're not told all the facts. They go for that kind of thing. So, you know, we provide excellent courses and things like that for people to learn how to do that kind of counseling. With the options involved, you know, and then, you know, we look to people who do things like antenatal and postnatal. So there's opportunities for people, for them, the volunteers and people to become educated in terms of how to help, and then that in turn will help the others to become educated in their areas. So there's Job Link. There's a thing that you can do where you can try and teach people how to start small businesses. And then there's others where you can teach skills, you know. So those are all things that are sitting on the perimeter that we need to get people involved in. So, you know, I'm appealing to the community to say, get involved. You know, get hold of me. Get an aspect, whether you are more admin or IT or
business-minded or
you know,
entrepreneurial
that you want to teach, either it's sewing or hair or nails, cooking, you know, those kinds of things. And if God can use me as an everyday, ordinary person, I think God can use anybody. And maybe you don't like to do the counseling, you know. There's one lady that I've met, she said she's too emotional. She could never counsel people. Well, you know, she can serve on a board. You know, there's some people who are good at writing, and we need to put, you know, little stories out, and that can, you know, manage to be able to catch people's attention just by, you know, putting things on our website. And so we have a Facebook page, and so we used ways, you know, with social media, and also create platforms for people to find out who we are. We do online counseling as well. So we're reaching people that are way beyond just the Gauteng and the Rand area. Okay.
Yes, that's mainly it. Because I was actually going to ask, because I think when you started, it was just in Windsor East, just in kind of like this local area of Robin Hill, Windsor East and Salala. It's gone a bit further.
Yeah, we need to create a lot more awareness in this local community, and that's what I'm actually actively doing at the moment. I've been to the clinic in Windsor. I'm meeting with social workers. There's a group of people that are working with the youth there, and so we do healthy sex education in schools as well. So this week I was at a school where I was talking to grade 10s and just talking to them where they're at risky behavior.
Yeah.
And what happens when teenagers engage in sexual activity, so the risks involved are there because there's a consequence to it. Education falls by the wayside. You've got a crisis in the family. There's hostility that and rejection and all of that kind of thing. The shame, the guilt, and there's a lot of myths around some of the outstanding of the children in schools because they learn from one another and they pick up from various sites the wrong kind of information.
Yeah.
And I actually do like online counseling. We got a thing called Pregnancy Help Network South Africa.
Yeah.
And so we do online, and we get a lot of people, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, even as young. I've spoken to 13 and 14-year-old girls who are saying, I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
So the teen pregnancy is massive.
Yeah.
And so, in terms of the things that you're encountering and dealing with there, it might not seem, people, you don't see it, but if you read material, South African newspapers were saying things like, during a 12-year period of time, there were nearly, you could say, close to 1 million born babies between the age of 10 and 19. That's school-going age.
Yeah.
10, imagine, 10 all the way to 19.
And if you're trying to build,
births, that's not including those that have aborted or abandoned, so you can imagine how high the pregnancy rate is amongst youngsters.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a massive move towards, if you're pregnant, just go and abort the baby. But there's a huge consequence, and it's highly risky.
Yeah.
So, they don't know that. And so we try and just explain to the children as well. So there's a whole team that can actually go into schools, work in the schools for education purposes.
Thank you. That's amazing. If there's one thing you want people to kind of get out of this conversation, really, in terms of all that we've spoken about and all that you've shared, what would you say is something key for guys to take out?
Yeah, sure, I could say quite a lot because there's lots that burns within me. I just think that we need to rebuild those broken walls. I think we're called to plant. I think we should. Doesn't matter what the situation is in the globally or the world.
Yeah.
In spite of anything that's going on, I think we're still called as a community, as a body of believers, that we shouldn't be sitting on our laurels, that there's work to be done. And I think that what I've realized during these last 3 years is that the church is for the community. The community isn't for the church.
Yeah.
And the church needs to get out into the community, into the marketplace.
Yeah.
And, through Life First and the pregnancy, support that we offer, you have direct access into that family and into the community. And it's almost like a catapult. You can, come into a point of brokenness and be able to affect and impact and influence just that family or just that person's life that will then have that effect into the community.
Yeah.
Where you can, educate and encourage and rebuild.
Yeah.
And, and repair some of that brokenness.
Yeah.
And But, there's a lot to be done.
Yeah.
There's a lot of broken walls. There's a lot of open gates where the enemy is just coming like a flood.
Yeah.
And I think that we're called to, as the body of Christ, to actually to be active and involved in the community.
Yeah.
And it's possible.
Yeah.
So there's something I read that I think it says it almost in a nutshell.
Go for
And it was actually a little quote that I listened to that Steve Furtick said. He used to put those little fast things in.
Yeah.
And he just said this here. He says, I'm unsure of what's ahead. I can't see what's ahead, but I'm going to go upstream. And if I walk towards, and I just keep moving towards what I sense He is doing, I know that God is up to something. And if we focus on the upstream stuff and not remain and stay and get stuck downstream, on the downstream stuff of like, you're crazy, I can't do this, I'm not good enough. This the problem is too big, I can't see, I can't. If we actually use those as doubts and distractions, and we lose sight of that upstream, movement, and we actually are going to lose momentum. We're actually going to get stuck.
Yeah.
But I think that's what I'm encouraged, is that keep fixed on that upstream, keep focused on what is God doing, because He is up to something.
Yeah.
And He wants us to rebuild.
Yes.
Nehemiah did it. Esther did it.
Yeah.
Stood in the gap. And, I believe that, there's so many Bible examples.
Yeah.
The Gideons, the Calebs,
yes.
the ones who fought the giants. There are giants out there. There's systems out there. And we can make a difference.
Yeah.
Sure. And, so I'm encouraged, I'm inspired when I hear that kind of motivational thing. And
sure, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing with us and just, your time and all that you've been doing in this ministry. And we hope and trust that it continues to grow and continues to have an even bigger impact and a bigger and wider influence on people's lives. And just before we go, is there any, you mentioned that you guys are on social media. How can people find you? What are they?
We've got a Facebook page. It's called Capital Life.
Yeah.
And then First Capital.
Yeah.
For First.
Yeah.
And then Pregnancy Help.
Pregnancy Help.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is also capital P, capital H.
Okay.
So if you just search for that on Facebook, you'll find our page.
All right. Not a problem. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you guys for watching or listening. We hope you were encouraged by Lyn's story. And if there's any way you want to get involved, you can contact her on Facebook. And we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you very much.